SwipeWell is very visual, and it's more of like a creative tool, where you use it to speed up and improve your workflow and things that you're creating. We just felt like, okay, well, there's no reason why we can't use SwipeWell to help people learn how to use SwipeWell.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Behind the Experience, where we give you an inside look behind the top product-led experiences. Each week you hear inspiring UX examples, proven strategies, and hard-earned lessons from experts. This is one of your co-hosts, Ramley John. Today we have Corey Haines, co-founder of SwipeWell. It is one of the easiest ways online to build a swipe file for your marketing, and you can use that to inspire your growth. Corey, how are things with you today?
Things going very well. Thank you. Yeah, really excited to chat.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I signed up for SwipeWell. I'm going to start using it to swipe marketing stuff for myself because I've been using Slack, been using Notepad. So I'm super excited to chat about this. We're going to be focusing on particularly on, I saw your tweet around this onboarding experience, and, I'd love to dig into this. And one of the first things I want to know before we dig into it is, what is success for new users at SwipeFile? Is it, swiping the first swipe, or is it something else?
Man, yeah. What does success look like? I think actually Connor and I, my co-founder, were talking about this the other day. I think what success looks like for us is actually having some sort of semblance of like a monthly active user. And kind of how we would define that is like they've made at least one swipe a week, for 4 consecutive weeks or something like that. Essentially, we actually haven't like codified that into an actual metric that we're tracking, but we were just talking about like, what does it actually look like to have like an active user, someone who's getting value out of the product, who's not like a zombie user and at risk to churn, but who's actually getting value out of the product, and that we can, point at and say, okay, we're doing a good job. These many people are monthly active users. And so, yeah, the main thing that we look at is the number of swipes compared to the number of people making those swipes, and how often, how frequent that sort of event happens, per week, per day, per month. We track most things by week, so we can just call it, weekly active users, maybe.
I mean, that makes sense. I imagine, when I'm on, reading a great book, I usually do spurts of swiping. I extend it to myself or to other places. So I think it totally makes sense to do it as a weekly, because, I read a book one week and then, or hear a podcast, I would swipe that rather than, I can't. I mean, there are some people out there who swipe every day, who learn something and swipe it. Yeah. Maybe I'm not at that level, but weekly active swipes can totally make sense. So for new users, getting them to that first swipe is super, super important. I know you've been working hard on, improving this experience, and I've signed up for it. Really, I'm gonna give people some heads up. It's great experience. What was some of your philosophy around like, building this experience before you even show it? Like, what, any thought process of what you were thinking through as you and your co-founder Connor was working through that? Building
definitely. Yeah, let me give some context too, for just like the state of mind that we were in, and just like context about the business as well. So we started working on it in like February of 2022 this year, as of this recording, and so we've been working on it for about 7 months ish, 6 or 7 months. I think Connor started writing the first lines of code in like the beginning of March ish. So very, very, very early stage. Basically what we did was, once we had like a prototype, we gave it to ourselves to use and kind of play with, and basically had like a prototype that we, weren't like publicly marketing or giving to other people, but that we can kind of start to use and figure out what are the limits, how can this be used? What are the features that we need to go build out, and just, try to be good users ourselves, and be our own, most valuable users. And then I think it was about like month 4, and maybe like in like May or June, when we started actually giving like the kind of an MVP shippable version to people. And actually the way that it started was as just a Chrome extension. So the only way to swipe was through the Chrome extension. Today there's a few other ways you can bulk upload files. You can even just like If you have something copied into your clipboard, like an image, you can just like paste it as well. You can forward emails in, and we have like multiple ways to swipe from the Chrome extension, where you can swipe a full page, like what's visible on your screen, or a section of a page, like an element that you can select. So like the MVP version was just a full page screenshot from the Chrome extension, and then that would just save to like an account that you can log into in our web app. But it was very, very, very simple. And then once we started adding on all these other features, before we wanted to like publicly launch or go into like what we call a public beta right now, where we still haven't like officially launched, quote unquote, but we're like, anyone can sign up on the website. We knew that we had to absolutely nail onboarding and activation, because otherwise we're going to put all this effort into hey, now you can sign up for free, and then like no one actually starts using the product because we're not enabling them to get the most value out of the product itself. So this is like ground zero for onboarding, for activation. And it was our first real attempt at trying to figure out how do we get people into the product in a way that inspires them to actually take action and use the product, rather than just, click around a couple times and then bounce and leave it for another day or another month, which might never, ever come. And we went through 4 different iterations, actually 5, if you really count like the kind of like default, just like threw something together really quick. The very first version was you just come in and like, instead of showing a couple of like examples or like preloaded swipes, it would just be like some text and a button, and it'd be like start swiping, click here to install the Chrome extension, and then that would go prompt them to install the Chrome extension. And then from the Chrome extension, once you successfully installed it, it would take you to a page that would be like start swiping. All you have to do is go to a website and then click on the Chrome extension, and it'll take a screenshot, go back to your account, and see that it worked correctly. And that was really the extent of it. So then like, I guess like we'll call that V0. And then V1, we had a bunch of preloaded swipes. They're kind of like educational. So we showed like, look, this is what you can do. Now go do it for yourself. And that still really didn't inspire a lot of action, because then people figured like, I think they felt like, well, I already see what this is like. I don't need to do it for myself.
Right.
So then V2 was we got rid of the preloaded swipes, and then we had a little like onboarding wizard where it was like, all right, we're going to ask you a couple questions. Then we're going to drop you in, and then we're going to try to like give you a personalized call to action that says like, start swiping websites, or start swiping emails, start swiping ads. And then maybe, that kind of blank screen with some personalization and segmentation will help inspire some action. Still not great. V0, V1, V2, V3 was we started kind of combining those, and basically gave people an option of like, look, there's some preloaded swipes. There's also an onboarding wizard, so you can see what it looks like, but then like you have to kind of check the boxes on the onboarding wizard to be done, quote unquote, with the onboarding. So we're hoping that kind of would just inspire people to, feel like, all right, you're onboarded, that one's checked, or you've like signed up, that one's checked. Now, here's step 2, 3, 4, swipe a website, swipe an email, upload your first one. And that was okay, but still felt like, man, over and over and over again, what I was doing was I was doing onboarding manually for a long time, for like 2 months. If you wanted to get into SwipeWell, you had to book a call with me. And then for 15 minutes, I would have you share your screen. I would send them the link to sign up, and I would watch you sign up. And I would kind of just like, throw my hands up, take a step back, let them try to figure out for themselves. And then once they got stuck, then I would kind of jump in and tell them, oh, well, actually you need to go here, or, try this next. But that kind of, I think I did over 100 of those in like a 2-month span. And that gave me a lot of perspective just to realize like, where does it kind of click for people? What are the aha moments? Where do they get stuck usually? And even after all those, V0 through V3 were still not great. So then I went back to basics, and I was like, all right, I'm going to look through all these different calls, all these recordings, all these transcripts, look through all the highlights. We use a tool called Grain, by the way, which makes it great for like easily recording calls. And then you can timestamp notes, which makes it really easy to like go back and try to find those moments. And I remembered that for a lot of people, like the first step that that we wanted them to do after they signed up that they would forget after they signed up is to install the Chrome extension. And the Chrome extension is kind of like this linchpin. It's this like crux of a moment where by using the Chrome extension, it gets them to actually swipe something, because once they install it, they're like, oh, I just want to see if it works. So then they go and make their first swipe. So we're like, all right, if we can just get people to install the Chrome extension first, then I think like the majority of the work will be done with onboarding, and the rest is kind of gravy with the onboarding wizard, with the preloaded swipes, with, you know, the kind of like UI elements and tooltips and things around the product where we're trying to, you know, nudge people the right way. So then V4, we combined all these things into what we have now, which there will probably, you know, there will definitely be a V5 and a V6 later, and so on and so forth. But now you sign up, there's a couple of questions that we try to personalize the experience, and then we force you to install the Chrome extension or to forward an email or to upload a swipe. One of those three, but you have to do something. You have to swipe something.
Right.
And then once you do, we send you into the dashboard. You're shown the onboarding wizard, and then you're also directed to the preloaded swipes in a different place, but you see the thing that you just swiped as like the first thing in your dashboard. So you've like, you know, you can see the fruit of your works finally. And that so far has been the most successful version of the onboarding that we've had.
Interesting. First of all, I love how this is an iteration. I think often when people think about onboarding, it was like, launch the best one, and then that's it. But you went through 5 iterations since launching the product, and it's still a young product. But like, I love how you're like really trying to figure out and crack this this activation problem, and like, how do you get them to it? To it. I remember way back then, I think you opened it up. I don't know if you opened it up to a few folks, but I signed up, and I don't think I had the Chrome installation, but now that it's there, actually, let's take a look at this for people who are tuning in by audio. You know, this is what you exactly talked about. After I sign up, I give a few information. There's this very clear, you know, there's no distraction. There's one block in the middle. It says make your first swipe. You know, the instructions: install the Chrome, the browser extension, go to any site like copywritingprompt.com. First of all, I love this. You own this, but as well, I think one of the problems most folks might have is like, I don't know what to swipe, but you're giving them options here, which we'll talk about in a bit. But then the second slide here is, somebody chooses email, and then your instructions, click to copy your address to your clipboard. There's a custom-made email address that's for this user that you can use. And then once it's installed, you're all set. But let's talk a little bit about this first. You said this was a linchpin moment that, you know, people who install this really makes a difference. Do you have any, you know, I'm guessing there's a really clear correlation. Once somebody install it, there's less friction for them to swipe other, swipes in the future. And that's why engagement and usage increases with this. Is that a fair assumption that I'm seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have the change in data over time because we set up the funnel too late, basically. But, you know, how we were tracking things was someone comes to the site, you know, to any page, then they go to our registration page, and then like the first screen of the onboarding is what we call like our welcome page. And that's really the one where now you're there's this 3-step process where then you're prompted to install the browser extension or to just swipe something, you know, through any one of the other means that are available. And what we saw was like the conversion rate from like the registration page, or really from like the welcome page to the browser extension installed, was like abysmally low. And it was just, you know, people weren't using it, right? Because it's like, it's not in front of you. One of the big advantages of having a Chrome extension is that you have real estate on someone's screen at all times, which is amazing. So I'm looking at my screen right now, and SwipeWell is the very first Chrome extension, and it's right next to the URL bar, which is the thing that I use the most, right? So like, there's a really good opportunity for real estate, just as a reminder, as a little nudge, as a little thing that gets someone to remember, oh yeah, I forgot about that thing. I should use it.
I love it.
And so it was really, really low. Now I'm looking at it, and from the welcome screen to the extension installed is about a 48% conversion rate. I think before, I want to say it was like 10 to 15%, to be honest.
It's a huge difference, right?
Yeah. I'm guessing. I don't actually know what it was. But I remember, we were looking at it. We're like, this is way too low. We need to do something else. So, you definitely trust me that it was a lot lower than 48%. And that's one of the big advantages. And actually, I took this from Brian Castle over at ZipMessage, because he has a similar dilemma where ZipMessage is a Loom competitor. And so for someone to actually experience the product and get to know how it works, they have to use it. And so he was like, yeah, no. We strip out all the nav links. We took out a lot of the UI elements and just hid them. And then the first thing you do when you sign up is you just create your first zip message. And if the really cool part about that too is that if someone isn't interested in doing that, then they're probably not a good user. And so you sort of, qualify them out. But if they are, then you get them to do that. And now you have a much better chance at converting them to a customer. But of course, also just getting them closer to experiencing value out of the product. So I was like, oh man, we should really, really do that. And so far it's paid dividends for sure.
Yeah. Because the other alternative to not using the Chrome extension, and I love that you mentioned around the real estate, it's right there, it's right in front of your face. Is that here? I'm just gonna share another thing here for folks who are tuning in. I'm logged into SwipeWell, and then it says start building your swipe file, and then I click new swipe. And there's a pop-up up here, so you have to add an image, title, source URL, tag, collection, notes. This is a lot of work. If there was no plugin, man, I have to drag this image here, then I have to give it a title, and I have to get the URL, and then but this Chrome, if I just use the Chrome extension here, you can swipe the full page here, already pre-fills the title, the URL, and all that stuff.
Right.
And it makes it easy, super easy there, without really figuring out. So I really, really do love that. The other thing I want to talk about is definitely copywriting prompts. So I think this is a genius, because I'm curious. Are you finding that that's our people's first swipe is copywriting prompts, because you do nudge them there a little bit? Because I have a hypothesis that another friction for new users for SwipeWell is what do I swipe?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Totally.
Yeah, so do I go to Evernote? I have to find an old swipe. I have to go to Slack, find a swipe that I like, that site that I like, and then I have to click this Chrome extension. I just need my first swipe to make it. Is that what you're finding here? Usually the first swipe is copywriting prompts, and interestingly enough, you also own copywriting prompts. So really, kudos on you. It's very smart.
Yeah. Well, again, going back to the manual onboarding calls that I was doing, people would kind of naturally, or the lucky ones would really make their way to the Chrome extension. And then, they would close it out and go back to the dashboard. I'm like, no, try it out. Why not go to any website? And then I think that kind of prompt of just go swipe something. People are like, and they just can't think of something. And it's their mind just goes completely blank.
Right.
And so we're just trying to reduce the friction, right? I think onboarding is always just about trying to reduce the friction, trying to just help someone hold their hand to take the next step. And so we had, swipe any website like SwipeWell.app, and people weren't going to it. They weren't clicking on it. And so we swapped it out with copywriting prompts, because it's it was basically like a, side project as marketing experiment for SwipeWell. And it's by the SwipeWell team. So I thought, okay, if we're going to send people to another website, we might as well send them to another thing that's ours, right? And if they didn't know about it already, maybe this is another thing, that helps them get value out of something that we've built and brings them back to SwipeWell. Because if you subscribe, there's at the very bottom, it's by the team over at SwipeWell, basically. So there's another link back to SwipeWell. But yeah, it was totally just trying to reduce friction, just trying to make it that much easier for someone to get started and take the question of what do I swipe completely out of the equation. And in fact, another part of that too was and we have an onboarding email that tackles this as well, a dedicated email that says, where do I get marketing inspiration from? And I have a list of, I think it's somewhere around like 20 different websites where we provide basically like, look, have at it. There's no excuse. You have no room to say that there's nothing to swipe, or I don't use that often because here's a ton of inspiration. One of these has to really click with you. We even created the marketing examples by SwipeWell library. It's basically we used our own product to kind of open source over 200 collections. I think it's like 205 collections, 205 different swipe files, if you will, of marketing examples, because we just wanted to make it that much easier for someone to get started building their swipe file and reduce the friction. And anyways, I'm being redundant here, but just make it really, really easy. Whatever like obstacle they come across, we help them hurdle it.
No, I totally love that. I think that totally makes sense. Making sure that people reduce that. Once again, like that is a huge. And the other thing that I forgot to mention that I love about your process was you started off your onboarding hands-on right in the beginning, human assisted. I think you mentioned it already, and this is my advice for a lot of folks who are starting out, who are pre-product market fit, is like a lot of human assisted stuff that you do. You're seeing where people are getting stuck. And you just saw like people getting stuck with what site to pull up, and you're helping them there. Like, what is friction if you haven't, people haven't seen exactly what the users are doing. The other interesting thing that you've done here, and I might be gushing a little bit of how well the onboarding bit has been so far. So one of the other things you've done really well is getting people to, check out how advanced usage for swipe files to SwipeWell using swipe cards themselves.
Yeah,
I thought that was pretty ingenious.
Swipes.
Swipes. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about this? I've seen other products do this really well, using your product to onboard people to the product. Like it's kind of very meta, but what was your thought process around this, you and Connor?
Yeah, so the process for most things that we do these days is to build a swipe file first for that thing to try inspiration. I mean, we've got to eat our own dog food and walk the talk, right? So when we were thinking about onboarding, I thought, well, I'm just going to go look at a bunch of good onboarding examples. In fact, I think I drew a lot from the sort of like onboarding swipe file that AppQs has as well. There's a bunch of really, really good examples in there. And so for those like pre-built swipes, those preloaded swipes in there, I got the idea of basically like, how do we use our own tool to educate people in a way that's kind of creative and experiential and exemplary of what people can experience. And I think that Trello was the inspiration for this. I know that there's a bunch of other products that do this well, like pitch.com. They're sort of like a Google Slides alternative, and all their like product announcements. And I think they have a bunch of templates. They always use their own product, obviously, to showcase it. Trello does this well with like a bunch of cards where you kind of land in like a getting started Trello board. Notion does this really well with a bunch of templates. There's going to be like a whole bunch of other ones that I'm kind of forgetting. But since SwipeWell is very visual, and it's more of like a creative tool, where you use it to speed up and improve your workflow and things that you're creating. We just felt like, okay, well, there's no reason why we can't use SwipeWell to help people learn how to use SwipeWell, right? We have this kind of really fun and cool and unique opportunity to use our own tool to do that for people. And also for the onboarding wizard that you're showing right there, we stole that one from Sentry, I think it was.
Sentry. Nice.
Yeah, Sentry has a very similar, I want to say it was Sentry. It might be something else, but Sentry has a very similar kind of left side panel type of wizard that I really liked because it takes up more real estate and it feels more important than like a really small fly out checklist, for example. But it's also not like dominating the entire screen with like a pop-up. And so this felt like kind of a good compromise a little bit. and it, it can go in and out. We can also add other things to it if we want to. I think eventually it'll turn a little bit more into like a, we might like merge the changelog in there. We might also showcase like SwipeWell original content in there. Notifications, kind of might be like a little hub for all things updates. But the most important thing right now and how we're using it is for onboarding as well. We call it our little quick start guide.
Love it. And for people who are tuning in by audio, there's this like panel on the left, and there's a progress circle. So like you can see, like as I've checked off install Chrome extension. I did that. Swipe a website. I did that. And then now read the guide, swipe an email, upload a swipe. So you're getting people to essentially, if they do all of this, they'll have 3 swipes by the end of to hopefully that really trying to get them to build a habit around swiping with SwipeWell. So I
Definitely
really love this.
Yeah, and even that little circle, the little progress bar circle that you saw right there. We also got that from I got it from Slack in particular.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Slack does this a little bit different. Well, I like that the way that they do it. You can do this too. We don't have like a timed trial. It's more like a usage trial where you get your first 50 swipes for free. But what Slack did was they have that little progress bar, and then they have like the number of days left in your trial in the middle of the bar, or in the middle of the circle. And I thought that was a really fun way because it's in the navigation bar. We have like a vertical left side navigation bar. So it's in the navigation bar, which means that it's seen anywhere in the product. It's visible, and it kind of stands out with the color as well. But then you click on it, and that's kind of the trigger for the left side panel and the little onboarding wizard as well. And people naturally want to see that little progress bar can be completed, right? And so we're trying to leverage that marketing psychology and user loops too.
I totally, I love this experience so far. One of the other comments that you mentioned that I find interesting is around how you use SwipeWell to build the product. I imagine, product teams and design teams can probably use this, but right now you'll probably be super hyper focused on marketing. Is that correct? Like you imagine in the future, release it to the teams, and then now like target like product teams, design teams, engineering teams, founding teams who are looking to swipe ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely for more than just marketers. That's kind of our beachhead, the tip of the iceberg for us on who we want to target, and that's me. It's my world, so I feel like I can position it really well for that world and get adoption in that segment first. But yeah, also just using the product itself. Like I am our own biggest power user, like by a mile too. It's not even close. Because this is a tool that I've wanted to see forever. And I think it's really important for me also just to be able to always be able to speak to any of the edge cases, the limitations, the crazy, wacky ways that people will use it, so that I know and I can empathize with, and I can even sort of get ahead of the things that people are going to experience for themselves, so that I have firsthand experience it with it myself. And one of the really fun ways that I did this as a power user was I used it to create the marketing examples library that I was talking about a little bit earlier. It's like that public list of all those 200 swipe files. And so for like a month, and the whole month of July, like 6 hours a day, I was just swiping stuff all day long. Just click, all day long. Tagging, organizing, adding to collections, titling, bulk uploading. It was a grind. And I think after that, I had about 6,000 swipes in my account, which I think the next closest account had like 200 or something like that, right? And through that process, I pushed the product to the limits. I had lots of feedback about, ideas for improving my workflow, bugs, opinions about how things should work, and new ideas for the future of other features or UI elements or things like that. And then we basically took all those collections that we created. So we have the kind of like way that we organize things is everything goes in one kind of master database for each person's account. But then we have tags as like the main way to organize. But we also have this idea of collections, which the idea is that eventually those collections will be publicly available, and you can even embed them on your pages and things like that. So I created 200 collections,
Wow.
which then Connor used the data, directly from the database to then populate the publicly available pages, which are marketing examples. And then we even created this really cool thing where you can, from marketing examples, public page, let's say it's like /examples/ads/SaaS, for example, looking at like SaaS ad examples. Any one of those images that you see, you can click a button that says add to my swipe file or add to my account.
I love it.
And then it'll just, right over to your SwipeWell with one click. That way you don't even have to like right click save. You don't even have to use a Chrome extension. This is another thing, again, where we're like,
that's cool.
You have no excuse. We know that you can build your swipe file.
Right.
All you have to do is click this one button and we will do all the magic. And that's been really, really cool. It's a fun kind of growth loop as well, because if someone doesn't have an account, then they're prompted to create an account. And then once someone does that, then they're like kind of hooked, like, oh man, that's awesome. And eventually the idea is, have some kind of like user generated content. You'll be able to see other people's swipe file and really easily be able to add it to your own. So that it's always prompting people to, to expose their collections and then to save it. And SwipeWell will absolutely be the easiest way to manage both of those workflows.
I love it. And I can imagine, like you're talking about it, like there'll be public pages. And if somebody asks me like, hey, Ramley, what is the best onboarding? I'll have a public swipe wall that I can share out. Like, here's the best ones out here. Really, really love this marketing examples here. I didn't know you spent how many months? 2 months just swiping all of this?
1 month curating. Yeah. And it was about a month of research as well. Gathering together all the sources and choosing which ones to explore, which ones not to. So it was about 2 months all together. And then there was like the actual launch of it as well, which is another couple of weeks.
Amazing. I love it. And for people who are tuning by podcasts or audio, it's swipewell.app/examples. And
yes,
people can check that out for sure.
Awesome.
As we wrap up, Corey, I'm curious now, what are some things that you're excited to try out next? Are there other stuff, in the pipeline in terms of the product, in terms of the experience that you're looking to improve, you're excited about?
Yeah, I think one of the big things we were just talking about before hit record, but one of the next big things coming up is team functionality. And I think that's also going to really force us to also take a look at onboarding again, because the experience for someone who's like the account owner and the originator is going to be different from someone being added to an account. And so we need to, make some tweaks, some improvements, really think about the more like collaborative side of things and how do we get whole teams to get value out of it rather than just one person. So we're going to have to like really think through things from scratch again once we hit teams. But also teams, I think really is more, we call it right now, we're in like single player mode. So we're just trying to create like what's the single best experience for any one person creating a swipe file. And then the kind of like next era, the next phase will be multiplayer mode, where how can one person share it with multiple people, or how can whole teams share it with each other? And so that's definitely one of the next big things I'm really, really excited about. I'm kind of hoping for like Q1 2023. Don't quote me on that later. Sorry, Connor, for pushing the deadline there. But really, really hopeful. That's what we're pushing for.
Right. I'm super excited. I'm really super excited about that. I feel like that's where, the land and expand strategy can work out really well. Because I think I was sharing with you earlier with AppQs, the way we're hosting our swipe file is on Slack.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, here's a cool content that we should try out, or here's a cool ad. And I feel like there's definitely opportunity to have a shared space, because Google Notion, Google Doc, those other ones, I can't imagine it being used fully for using swipes. One final question, Corey, as we wrap up: where can people find out more about you, and where can people find out more about SwipeWell online?
Yeah, definitely. Twitter is probably the best place to find me and interact with me. My DMs are open. I tweet fairly often about SaaS marketing stuff, and I'm just at Corey Haines Co. Corey with an E and Haines with an I, if that helps at all. My personal site's coreyhaines.co with a list of all my projects and more about me, but swipewell.app if you want to sign up for free, create a free account. start building that swipe file. We're huge believers in the idea of the swipe file, and I hope that our conversation today kind of helps illuminate a little bit like how important and how helpful it is to the kind of whole creative process of whatever you're working on. Doesn't matter if you're in marketing and design and growth and product. We're constantly churning through new projects, right? And so leveraging all of your inspiration, kind of this whole database of people who have already done amazing work is an absolutely untapped opportunity for most people.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Corey. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me.